Hey, everybody, welcome to Friar Territory, part of the Foul Territory Network. I am Darren Smith with Marty Caswell, per usual. And look at that handsome fella in the middle. You recognize him, you know him, you love him. He's Kyle Glaser, who's not only joining us today, once upon a time host of this program, but also rocking the Friar Territory gear. Gotta say, kind of jealous. Kyle, good to see you. Marty, good to see you. I am back in San Diego. I am in North Park at one of the fine coffee establishments that shall go unnamed unless they want to give me free stuff or advertise here on Friar Territory. Kyle, good to see you. Thanks for being with us. I know we're going to get into some Joe Musgrove stuff, but we have to ask, since it's our first time chatting with you since the trade deadline, what did you think of what the Padres did?
Yeah, I think they had a very, very good deadline. Adding Robbie Ray and Casey Mize, look, they needed to add minimum two starting pitchers. Pitching chaos, they've made it work beautifully, but we see teams that do this, they run out of gas after about 3 weeks. So adding those two starters was critical. And yes, they're both rentals, but these are high-end pitchers. They're both pitching at a very high level this year. You feel really comfortable handing the ball to Robbie Ray in game two of a playoff series. You feel very comfortable handing the ball to Casey Mize in game three of a playoff series. These are two difference making pitchers, not back end guys who are just going to eat innings for you. Again, new team, there's always some dynamic changes there, but I'm really not worried about Robbie Ray, especially. He's coming from the NL West, and Casey Mize at this point, he's a seasoned veteran. He's seen it all. He's pitched in the playoffs. I expect both of them to come in and make an instant impact for the Padres. The players they gave up were talented. I don't want to make it seem like they gave up nothing to get them, but if these two do what they're capable of, the trade off might be worth it.
And I think, too, we've talked a lot about, this team, should it get to the postseason, could be a tough out in a short series because of the bullpen. The question was, could they get across the finish line during the regular season? And Kyle, to me, this accomplishes both. I'm not saying the mission is done, obviously. Nothing has been won yet, and the Padres are currently still outside of a playoff spot looking in. But if you talk about how to, like you said, a game two, a game three, potentially in the playoffs, but also just getting to that finish line now, this is really going to help you with these two guys, should they pitch to their, to at least to their expectation, modest or even a little bit more than what people would think coming through the door.
No question. The Padres' chances of making it to the postseason have greatly increased by adding these two. Now, look, they still have to get into playoff position. Philadelphia, I know they've had big ups and big downs. I still think there's too much talent there for them to miss the postseason. And the Diamondbacks are a talented team. The Padres have split the first two games with them. I covered the D-backs for a series here for MLB.com against the Dodgers leading into the All-Star break. This is a good team that can beat you in a lot of different ways. So it's not going to be easy, but there's no question the Padres' chances have increased. And if they can get in, again, there's a lot of ifs here, right? If Nick Pivetta and Joe Musgrove come back healthy and full strength, which we'll get to in a second, you could theoretically go with the starting five of Michael King, Robbie Ray, Casey Mize, Joe Musgrove, Nick Pivetta in any order. That's a really darn good starting five, but there's a lot of ifs there. If the latter two are healthy in Pivetta and Musgrove, and if Mize and Ray are able to make the transition seamlessly, if King can, harness his command a little more. But there's no question. They are a much better team on August 5th than they were on July 30th, and that's the point of the trade deadline.
Great points, Kyle. Good to see you, Kyle and Darren. Welcome back to San Diego, D. Smith. The if is a huge question mark on both Nick Pivetta and Joe Musgrove. But going back to the trade, how impressive is it that AJ Preller was able to add two legitimate starting pitchers and not have to give up anybody in the bullpen? I mean, they kept their major league roster intact. I really thought that you would have somebody from the back end of the bullpen that was going to move. I didn't think Morahone. I didn't think Mason Miller, but perhaps a Matsui, perhaps Estrada, perhaps Wani Peralta. Preller was able to keep all of those guys.
Well, first and foremost, we have to give credit to the team for winning 8 of 9 going into the trade deadline to completely resuscitate their season. Mm-hmm. They lost 5 of 7 coming out of the break. They were 50 and 53. They were last in every offensive category. They had zero margin for error, and they went out and did exactly what they needed to do, taking care of business against the teams they're supposed to, a spiraling Marlins, the Rockies, the Giants. So first and foremost, let's give the players credit for putting the front office in a position to add and make those decisions, because it didn't look like they were going to. I will say that the Padres being able to acquire rentals, as good as Ray and Mize are, without having to touch their major league roster is not a surprise. We see rental prices, Tarek Skubal aside, they tend not to be too high. The Padres did give up good prospects. Again, this farm system, I've always said, no farm system is ever empty. There was some talent there, limited talent, but some talent. And look, Cash Mayfield's a very good pitcher. I do think that one will hurt 3 or 4 years from now, but look, if the Padres make the postseason and they are able to go on some sort of run and Casey Mize plays a big role in it, they'll take that trade-off.
Can I just say, though, just jump in on that, and I know that we have some sound from Joe Musgrove coming up, but Kyle, what if they don't make the playoffs? Will it be remembered as a season similar to 2023, where lots of people still pop up from time to time and say what the Padres did or didn't do at the trade deadline was a massive mistake because they could have cashed in on players like Josh Hader and Blake Snell? Just for the record, for the millionth time, I'm not one of those people, because I thought that was a team that I felt like at some point had to click, and it clicked too late. But if this team doesn't go, is it going to be remembered as the kind of mistake that the Padres made investing in this team that they shouldn't have? In other words, will we look back now while things are good for AJ Preller today and people like his commentary about being unapologetically trying to win? But do you think, though, if it finishes just a game out and nothing crazy happens, nothing unforeseen injury-wise, do you think people will say, there was a lot of buzz about this team potentially selling Adrian Morejon, Mason Miller, et cetera? Maybe that's what they should have done.
This team will be looked at differently than the 2023 team because the 2023 team was stacked. Going into that season, looking at that roster, there's no reason for that team not to have been a World Series contender, especially coming off of a 2022 NLCS appearance. This team was never that talented. This team was never seen the same. This was always going to be hey, if they get in, it's going to be, a fifth or sixth wild card type of spot deal. So it wouldn't be looked at anywhere near the same level of disappointment, nor should it be. At the same time, I think the Padres will be the first to tell you that they will view the season as a failure if they don't make the playoffs. And especially after adding these players, if they fail to make the playoffs entirely, having given away, again, some of the very few good young players they actually still have in their farm system and thinning it out even more, then the trade-off isn't worth it. So there's no question this is a risky play. We know that when push comes to shove, AJ Preller is going to always err on the side of let's go, let's compete. And I don't think that's a bad thing. It just comes down to how much you're willing to pay to do that. Look, but there's no question. If the Padres make the playoffs, and I would say they need to advance a little bit too. If they make the playoffs and get swept in the wild card round, these trades are still not going to look great. They really need to, they've doubled down here on a team that has, not been great most of the season and got hot at the right time. So they need to advance, I would say, at least a round or two to make it seem worth it.
Aren't you rooting for the Braves? Aren't you rooting for the Braves just based on sometimes a team just has your number, and that would be a team like the Chicago Cubs? You're rooting for the Braves if you're eyeing that wild card picture. We'll see.
We're going to hear from Joe Musgrove when we come back, just to put a wrap on our thought here. I will say, running the risk of sounding like an AJ Preller honk, like I'm totally in the tank with him. Some of the criticism is always, well, anybody could have been the GM of a team where your owner gives you hundreds of millions of dollars to invest in it. And AJ Preller got this team. He did enough with the Griffin Cannings and the JP Searses of the world to get them into a position where they could add and make a run at the postseason. So it wasn't just about managing or GMing by the checkbook. They had to be creative here over the last couple of years where the spigot was kind of shut off financially. And yet here they have been competitive last couple of seasons, and it looks like we're going to be heading down the stretch looking at the playoffs all the way probably up until that final series against the Arizona Diamondbacks. When we come back, Marty went up to Lake Elsinore. She saw Joe Musgrove. She saw Nick Pivetta pitch. She's going to recap her trip, and we're going to hear what Joe Musgrove had to say when we return on Friar Territory. Marty, it's crazy that we're already in the August. I mean, the summer is kind of over, and people are probably thinking, well, what do I want to do before summer expires and kids are back in school? Well, if you want to go to any sporting event, if you want to go to any concerts, whether it's in San Diego or otherwise, SeatGeek is your destination, especially for Major League Baseball tickets. If you want to go to one of these Padre games, whether they're playing at Petco Park where it's tough to get tickets, or maybe some other places like Arizona where it's not as tough, SeatGeek, make sure you download this app. Have it on your phone. They rate the tickets. You're going to know if you get a great deal. Thank you very much. SeatGeek always has our back.
D. Smith, it's the #1 ticketing app. Over 70,000 events, over 35 million downloads. Perhaps you want to be the first to watch Robbie Ray in a Padres uniform. You got to see him last week just shut down the Padres. You want to see Robbie Ray? Do you want to watch the Milwaukee Brewers, the team who did not go for it with Tarek Skubal? There's only one place to go, and that is SeatGeek, my friend.
Of course, we have a code for you guys. You can see it there if you're watching on YouTube. Use the code Territory10, 10% off. your next set of MLB tickets on SeatGeek. Again, use the code Territory10, 10% off MLB tickets, official partner of Major League Baseball. That is SeatGeek. All right, welcome back to Friar Territory, part of the Foul Territory Network. I'm Darren Smith with Marty Caswell, Kyle Glaser today, longtime national Major League Baseball writer, former host of Friar Territory. You can subscribe to Friar Territory on YouTube, wherever it is that you get your podcast. We do appreciate that. Leave us some good comments, even if it's only the shows where Kyle joins us. That's okay, too, because those are the better shows. I think we would all agree on that. Marty, you went to Lake Elsinore to watch Nick Pivetta and Joe Musgrove. There was some good news. There was a little bit of potential bad news. I know people are analyzing video that you were there to document. Tell us about your trip to Lake Elsinore.
Well, Darren, it was hotter than the sun yesterday, and I was trying to go ahead and shoot as much footage as possible. But then all of my apps on my Android shut down because my phone was overheating. That was from sitting in the sun after like a minute and a half. So it was blazing hot yesterday, but I was on a mission yesterday to watch Joe Musgrove. Where do you want to start? Do you want to start with the good or the bad? How do we go with this? That's Joe Musgrove making his first rehab start, Darren, since he pitched against, it Great Britain? Great Britain during the WBC, all the tune-ups. That was at Peoria way back in February. Nick Pivetta, all of 4 starts. So yesterday, as we knew, was a big day for the Padres, just to see their next step and their progression. But
let's start with Musgrove, because we always, Musgrove's been a guest on the show, and Musgrove certainly is somebody that people in San Diego have certainly become fond of and are endearing of. So let's hear what Musgrove had to say.
Okay, here's Joe Musgrove first on playoffs. I'm returning.
Yeah, I mean, this is everything, dude. Playoff baseball is like the most fun thing you can do as an athlete. And a lot of guys go through their entire career without getting a chance to ever see it. So fortunate to be in a club and, at a time when the Padres are as good as they are. And, being out for so long, man, it's just the competition is what you miss. You do all this hard work and all the effort goes in, and you usually get that release every 5 days of getting to go get that competitive, juice flowing and kind of get some of that out of your system. So it's been damn near 2 years since I've been able to do that. So I'm really looking forward to doing that at the big league.
Sorry about that, guys. I'm having one of those days. So I would say, Joe Musgrove was really encouraged yesterday. Threw about 39 pitches. His max velo, I think, topped up at around 93. But for him, again, the important thing is how he comes out of it. He and Pivetta both threw a bullpen at Petco Park last week. But Musgrove was really encouraged by his outing, and you can see it in his body language. You can hear it in his tone. So he thought it was a really, really good day. Do you guys want to hear from Joe Musgrove on just really on the arms the Padres added?
I do. I also want to say thank you to Joe Musgrove. Maybe he's been listening to Friar Territory or watching, because we just had this conversation with Heath Bell, who never had the opportunity to pitch in the playoffs, a 3-time All-Star. We talked about Randy Jones, who won a Cy Young Award, who never had the opportunity to pitch in the playoffs. Both of those guys have said publicly and privately they would have traded in the accolades of their career for an opportunity to get to pitch in the playoffs. So I love what it was that Joe Musgrove just had to say there.
Yep, just shooting to make a run. All right, here he is on the two guys the Padres did add, Casey Mize and, of course, Robbie Ray, who will pitch on Friday.
Kind of go with waiting for you and Nick to kind of get
it's great. I mean, our offense has, worked their ass off this year to get things right. And the pitching staff has kind of had to piece it together lately. A lot of that, responsibility falls on me and Nick. Injuries happen, but, this team counted on us being there and being a part of that rotation. And, him and I are doing everything we can to get back as soon as we can, but having some reinforcements come in, especially guys like that have done it for a while at a high level. Robbie's track record speaks for itself. Casey being a first overall pick and kind of coming into his own in the league as a starter. Really good. And then heard a lot of good things about the teams they came from, about work ethic and just quality of person. So excited to have them.
Does that, having them, allow you to kind of like just settle into the schedule? You don't have to rush it. You don't have to cut a corner. There's reinforcements now.
I mean, I didn't plan on cutting any corners to begin with. The rush thing is not really up to me. I mean, if I could, I would rush back and be back sooner than possible. But, the staff and AJ and them got a plan for us to get there. This does make it, give us a little more peace of mind that, not everyone's holding their breath waiting for us to get back, that they got a little bit of help until we can get back. But The way that our rotation will round out when me and Nick get back in the rotation, I feel really confident about it.
How encouraged were you by Tim's out? Just what you were able to do out in the sun?
Yeah, I mean, it feels good. We threw 117 last week, so conditioned for the 11 a.m. hot starts. But yeah, I mean, I felt good about it. I feel really good that, going out for my third inning, I felt better than when I went out for the second. Typically it should be the other way around. As you go further, it should get harder and you should feel a little more tired. But I felt like getting the jitters out in that first inning, kind of trying to deal with some traffic on base and get out of some tough situations in the second and third inning. I felt like I was kind of just starting to settle in, and then, ball gets taken. But I kind of knew the pitch count. I was just happy I was able to go and get the third up. So hopefully I can get a fourth up next time.
So a good day for Joe Musgrove and the San Diego Padres. A good day for Joe Musgrove. He was highly encouraged by his outing. Do you guys, and he talked about not rushing back, and some of the pressure is off him, and hopefully for Nick Pivetta too, to not have to go ahead and rush back the recovery, because the Padres did add 2 arms in Mize and Robbie Ray. How big a deal is that? I think, Darren, we had this conversation with Musgrove, a couple months ago, that he is not going to try to rush back. He knows where he's at in his career, at this point in his career. He knows what's at stake. He is not going to go ahead and rush back and worry about a setback.
Yeah, I mean, Kyle, I'll just say this. I think we've and others have said maybe the season for the San Diego Padres hinges on whether or not they get Musgrove and Pivetta back. Mm-hmm. And now, I'm not saying it feels like a luxury if they get those guys back. I still think it's important that they do, because you never know what's going to happen. You could think you've stabilized in a bullpen or in a rotation, and then all of a sudden something happens and you're not in great shape. Yeah. But at least we can take our foot off the gas of that rhetoric now, because we're not saying, well, maybe you can squeeze a little bit more life out of fill in the blank starter that we never really were convinced by anyway.
Herman Marquez.
Yeah. There's no question that you never wanted to rush Musgrove or Pivetta back anyway. That wasn't going to really help the team. It wasn't going to help them. And now there's no question. There's a little less pressure to do so if things go sideways, because you actually have 3 legitimate starters who can pitch at a high level in the rotation now versus 1. So yeah, you didn't want to have to rush them back anyway, but now you don't have that added pressure that makes you want to maybe do it just to try and see, if we can just get 4 innings out of them. Now you can just wait until they're actually fully ready to go.
Well, unfortunately, the Pivetta news is it's a little confusing, because, Marty, I'll let you describe the scene here for people that don't have social media.
Okay.
But Pivetta, they're piggybacking, so it's Musgrove and then Pivetta. And Pivetta was pitching, and the video you can see here, he's on the mound. Kind of looks like Pivetta, normal mannerisms. He's always pacing around the mound a little bit.
Wait, that's the wrong clip. I'm sorry, guys. Here we go. That's the clip.
He's throwing here for Lake Elsinore. I'm just doing play-by-play for those that are listening to the podcast. But he throws a pitch and he just walks off. And everybody's kind of confused because it's not the end of the inning. And as he goes across the first baseline towards the home plate in Lake Elsinore, he stops for a second. He takes his hat off, and then he walks into the dugout, and he's escorted by somebody into the dugout as well. And I don't think he spoke to the media afterwards, Marty, so I'll let you tell us what it was that you witnessed.
No, he didn't. We knew that Joe Musgrove was going to speak to us after his session. He met us right out there, and then he was getting ready to go ahead and watch Musgrove pitch when we said goodbye to him. But we were told in advance that Pivetta was not going to speak to us. He didn't want to speak to us after he threw at Petco Park. He threw a pen, he and Musgrove, last weekend. So this was unexpected. You can kind of hear it in the crowd. Like, they were wondering, did he think it was a called strike and he was just done for the day? Was he in a pitch count? No, they wanted him. They expected him to go maybe 2 innings. I think Musgrove went 2 2/3. They were expecting more from Pivetta. But from talking to people in the organization, he felt something in his elbow. He didn't feel it when he threw at Petco Park, when he threw a pen. He felt something then, and he took himself out of the game. He went down, sat inside a bench, felt better, and decided to go ahead and throw privately in a cage. But I think it's too soon to call it a setback. The Padres are going to evaluate him today. I think he's back in San Diego. But it was not a good sign that the first time he threw in that sort of game action, he felt something in his elbow. So he took himself out.
Yeah, I mean, and you can see it, right? He comes off the field, and you see he bangs his arm against the side. He's frustrated. He knows what happened. I mean, it was very obvious watching it. And at this point, we just have to wait for more information to come out. It's pretty typical that if something happens down in the minor leagues, whether it's a rehab start or a minor leaguer, it takes about 24 to 48 hours for the information to really filter out. So we have to wait and see. But yeah, anytime you have one of your top pitchers walk off the mound mid at bat, very clearly frustrated and hurt, that's not a good thing. The bullpen session, it's encouraging that he was able to feel good enough to go out and throw a little bit more, but we also have to see how he feels the day after, which is now today, and even tomorrow, the day after. So there's a lot of unknowns here, and I think we need to, on the one hand, yeah, it's concerning, but I also think we need to withhold judgment until we receive the full picture of information about what exactly happened.
Yeah.
And I expect that to come out here in the next 24 to 48 hours.
Yeah, and listen, I think in fairness, I realize these are human beings. I don't mean to sound dismissive of them and their careers, but I think most of us had thought if you could get one of the two back, you would probably consider that a win for the Padres. 2 of 2, getting them both back, wow, okay, that was something I think would have really been the best case scenario for everybody. And I think, as it goes, I know we could always sound a little bit whiny in the media because Nick Pivetta was not going to speak at Petco Park last week. He was not scheduled to speak yesterday. Obviously, there is this clause in his contract that we've all become aware of, that the Padres can void the option if he's on the injured list for, I think it's 120 consecutive days or something
130
like
days,
that.
yes.
And that date
August
is coming
22nd.
up. And maybe for Nick Pivetta, if he's not super confident about his return, he doesn't want to get asked a bunch of questions, which could become a little bit of a potential distraction. So, I do want to be a little bit fair there because, I know we can say, well, why isn't this guy speaking? And, maybe there's a plausible reason why he's not doing it. Because, that's a pretty important moment for him and a pretty important decision for the Padres. So we'll see. I think Kyle said it well. He's covered 1 million of these guys.
Yep.
We heard Craig Stammen talk about it. It's the difference between throwing bullpens and throwing on flat ground and throwing a competitive environment, Kyle. I mean, that's everything that we've been warned about throughout the years, and especially this year from Craig Stammen with these guys.
Exactly. You cannot simulate game action when you're on the mound. There's a hitter in the box trying to beat you. No amount of bullpen sessions, no amount of sim games can really replicate that. So whenever you see this happen in that environment, again, it's concerning, but we need to just wait and see what the official diagnosis is, the official word, and get more information.
Kyle,
we've seen it the last couple of years too.
Yeah.
I mean, Musgrove, right? I mean, he kind of blew out in the postseason. Darvish gave you everything you had during the regular season up until the point then where it was, it was time, for him to just give you what he got in the postseason, and then it was time to go.
Kyle, before we let you go, I do want the last time we talked to you was a couple weeks before the trade deadline, and you made a case for why the Padres needed to go ahead and sell at the deadline because they had the worst offense in baseball. Since that time, they look more like what we expected. What do you think has changed the most with this Padres offense?
Yeah, so just to put it in perspective, the turnaround we've seen up through July 1st, the Padres were 30th in the majors in batting average, 30th in runs scored, 29th in on-base percentage. You've heard me talk all about it before. They were the worst offense in baseball objectively. Since then, since that 23-3 loss to the Cubs starting the day after, they are first in the majors in batting average. They are first in on-base percentage. They are top 5 in runs. They have literally gone from worst to first in a lot of offensive categories. It has been a massive turnaround. And I want to give this team credit. And one of the things I noticed starting around mid-June was you could see it. They weren't chasing as much. They were a little more patient. The at-bats were a little bit better. And I was curious, so I kind of dove into just some of the numbers. And I'm not going to regurgitate a bunch of data at you, but the overall point is we have seen the Padres, their chase rate out of the zone has declined significantly. Overall, they're being way more patient. They're being more selective on pitches in the zone as well. And that's where we've seen all this come from. They're swinging at better pitches. They're not giving the pitcher anything. They're not chasing. And as a result, we're seeing, harder contact. The exit velocity is up. Line drive rate is up. All the things you want to see. And give the Padres credit. I talked about back in June when I spoke to guys, they need to make fundamental changes team-wide. And they did it. The team-wide approach has completely changed. And yes, it's not just Merrill and Machado. Fermin's hitting. Cronenworth is hitting. It's everyone. This has been a team-wide approach change. And I want to give the coaching staff credit. Again, they've been pilloried. If you're going to criticize when something goes wrong, you have to give credit when something goes right. And they did the right thing here. They did not sit idly by and say, we just got to wait for our guys to figure it out. No, there's been a team-wide approach change here, and it is why they have taken off team-wide, not just the stars.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's interesting too. In Major League Baseball, I know it's cliche about how long the season is, but when you can see those kind of changes evolve over time, like it really, whether it's pitching, whether it's some of the decision making about, well, we're not just going to roll these starting pitchers out there over and over and over again. Kyle Glaser, you are the best. Always our pleasure when you take the time to join us here on Friar Territory. Thank you, as always, for the great insight. We look forward to talking with you next. So appreciate it. Have a great rest of your week.
Thanks, you guys as well.
Thanks, Kyle.
All right, that's Kyle Glaser. We'll be back, and we will wrap it up this episode of Friar Territory when we return.
Hey, for the families out there looking for a different path to help your child succeed at home, look into K-12 powered schools. Todd, Father, you've done the homeschooling thing in the past. I know you liked it.
Yeah, I did. I liked it a lot. All my kids have done it before. It's an opportunity for them to stay at home and enjoy school just as much. They learn a lot. And this is an opportunity for families that are on the go too as well. They have to understand, listen, can't be at a regular school at all times. I need my child to be doing this, whether it's an athletic career or whatever stature they are at. And we loved every second of it. And I think it is an easy opportunity for some children.
K-12 offers tuition-free accredited online public education for students in K through 12, all in a setting that works for your family. See how K-12 powered schools can help unlock your child's full potential. Enroll today at k12.com/FOUL. That's the letter K, the number 12.com/FOUL. K12.com/FOUL.
All right, welcome back to Friar Territory, part of the Foul Territory Network. Just Darren and Marty right now to take you home on this, our second show of the week. By the way, I would like to say I kind of like the look of this coffee shop in North Park. I think
I
we should
like that.
advertise. I would like to come here. This is not a fake background. This is an actual brick wall.
I
right
love
behind
that
me here.
background.
I like the vibe in here. I don't know if the
Yeah.
sound is too much, but the coffee's great. It's one of my favorite spots, one of the things I miss about living in North Park. So I'd be more than willing to come here and do many more shows if they are willing to put their name on this show.
I think that's a great idea. What's the coffee order, D. Smith? What do you get there?
Okay.
You a latte guy? Let's go.
I'm more a cappuccino guy, but they have this, it's called a cinque. Cinque and cinque, C-I-N-Q-U-E, which I think
Okay.
is Italian for cortado. I don't know that that's actually accurate, but normally I'm a cortado type or a cappuccino type, but they're cortado at least. Did I just say the name of the place? Maybe I
Yes,
did.
it's okay.
But they offer something called a cinque. So that's what I normally get when I'm here, and
All right.
it's doing the job, Marty. We're 25 minutes into this, and I feel like I could do at least another 25 more. So
I love it.
very good coffee, and they have good little food here that I'm going to imbibe on as well. So
Very good.
Anyway,
By the way,
if you want
speaking
to
of
advertise, by the way, on Friar Territory, you can email Marty.
That's a great idea. By the way, speaking of the food and the coffee, the important question that's always asked when players go to minor league affiliates to go ahead and make their rehab is, what was the spread? So we asked that of Joe Musgrove yesterday, and the spread, Darren, was taco truck, and in true Joe Musgrove fashion, speaking of the coffee, a coffee station. So
Yeah,
Joe Musgrove
well,
had him,
of course.
and Pivetta had him
That's the
covered.
family business.
That's the
that is
business.
the family business. By the way, that is a really good move to get the whole taco truck.
Yes, it is.
I think that's better than ordering from the chain restaurant. Just have the taco truck show up there.
Mm-hmm.
That's a really, really good move. So do we want to hear anything else from Musgrove? You mentioned Pivetta. We talked about Pivetta not speaking, but you did ask Musgrove about
I did.
Pivetta.
And I think what he had to say was really interesting, considering the reasoning of Pivetta taking himself out of the game and what he may have been feeling. But I asked Joe, what have you seen from his outings, his bullpen sessions as you guys have been rehabbing back? This is the last thing for, let's see, I got to find it. Oh, on Pivetta, here we go.
Yeah, I think for him it's just like the confidence and trusting his arm. I think his stuff is in a really good spot. I think there's just, throughout this process, he's had days where he has a hard time really letting the ball go and being confident and going through his motion. Not to say that it hurts him, but there's been pain there in the past, so there is that mental block or hesitation of if I really rip this, am I going to set myself back? But being around him, he's done a really good job of pacing himself and picking times to really get good work in, and then other days it's stay away from it completely. So I think we're in a similar spot as far as how we're feeling physically. I think when he comes out of this, he'll probably give you a better idea of how his stuff feels, but I'd like to say that he's pretty confident with where his stuff's at.
Yeah, and I think again I mentioned Musgrove blowing out when he did in the postseason a couple of years back against the Braves, and Darvish giving you everything that he had, and we understand Major League Baseball. Unfortunately, as people like to say, it is a business, and I don't want to suggest that these things are just transactional, but those guys did get paid, and Pivetta, I know he's got some money due to him, but you can understand also if Nick Pivetta is like, not going to, I'm just going to put my arm on the line no matter what happens. And if it breaks, it breaks. You can understand somebody who might be trying to balance his willingness to get back to pitch for this team, thinking about his short-term goals while also thinking about what his long-term future might be, because it's his arm and nobody really knows what the future is for him, if the team is going to keep him around or if he's going to opt out or what baseball is going to look like. So I would imagine there's quite a few things going on in the brain of Nick Pivetta and his personal team, not the Padres. That's a lot, Marty. That's a lot to process.
Yeah, you can understand. So, you can absolutely understand the frustration in that moment.
Yeah. Like I said, I mean, when Musgrove's like, "Hey, I'll do what I got to do.
Yeah.
This team has extended me."
Yep.
Darvish was like, "I'll do what I have to do. This team has extended me." And now we're talking about, well, hey, if Pivetta doesn't look good, you could void the contract. It's like, oh, okay, that's just the cold, hard reality of the sport. So I think, from whatever people think about him, you can understand, why there might be a lot of contradictory thoughts. And I'm projecting here. I don't know that there are. I'm just trying to put myself in Nick Pivetta's shoes as best I can, which is probably a fool's errand.
It's human nature. It's human nature. He's busting his ass to get back. There's a really important deadline of August 22nd that he may not be able to hit. And if you're going to assume the team's going to move on from you and they're going to go ahead and void that option, Darren, walk away from that option, why are you putting yourself through this right now? Why are you not just go ahead and get ready for the uncertainty of whoever of the offseason and your next team? A lot going on there.
Plus, by the way, you're also sitting there like working out with Joe Musgrove all the time. Right? So like all you have to do is look at the guy that you're working out with and be like, wow, that was quite a journey. I think Kyle has talked about this. We just go, oh yeah, Tommy John surgery. Just have the surgery. How many times do you hear people in our business or fans go, just have the surgery? What are you waiting for?
Right.
It's just Tommy John surgery. It's no big deal. You'll be back within a year. Look at all these examples around baseball.
A year?
Ain't that easy.
No.
Because now you're working out with Musgrove, which I'm sure, as motivational as that might be, because Joe is naturally a motivational guy.
Yep.
It's also a cautionary tale that it's not as easy as people think it is. And again, I don't know that that's even Nick Pivetta's injury. I'm just saying, for anybody, it's like, okay, dude, why don't you just give this up and think about your future? That's usually not something that players want to do. Like going under the knife is usually not exactly where it is that the players want to go. Especially when you have teams that have the ability to make decisions like the Padres and others do as well. Well, Marty, why don't we just leave it there for the day? The good news is the Padres are not going to get swept by the Arizona Diamondbacks, which means that Randy Vasquez, that was an important start for him.
Huge.
I think that's important for reasons that we mentioned on a previous Friar Territory, which is, you don't want to lose the tiebreaker to the Arizona Diamondbacks when you've already lost it to the Cubs and you've already lost it to the Phillies.
Yep.
These are the teams that you're in competition with. It kind of feels today like maybe it's the Padres and the Diamondbacks for that final wild card spot. Kind of feels that way. So 2 more to go in the desert and then 3 more to go at the end of the regular season. But it was important to win that game and to win it in convincing fashion. I know maybe a little closer than people thought at 8-0 to 8-4 in the blink of an eye, but these things happen. So we'll see what Game 3 has to bring, and then we'll
Casey
look forward to
Mize
the Padres returning back home. The Casey Mize debut for the Padres. What did you think of Scooble's debut?
Who?
For the Dodgers.
5-game losing streak for those Dodgers.
Yeah. Well,
They don't have a team chasing them hot on their heels, right? They have the division wrapped up. So we'll see how they play. We'll see how they play. Yeah,
well,
we'll
as
see.
the great philosopher Arnold Schwarzenegger once upon a time said in the movie Predator, if it bleeds, you can kill it. So we'll see where this goes. All right.
Profound.
Thank you very much. Thank you to Kyle Glaser. For Marty Caswell and Darren Smith, thank you all for your support of Friar Territory, and we'll do it again soon.